guys. So today I'm going to talk about chapel veil etiquette and when and how to wear your chapel veil. It should be pretty, people think it's pretty self-explanatory, but you wouldn't be surprised how many questions I get about it. And in church, how many people I see that aren't quite following the etiquette rules, which is fine. I mean, we're all learning. But this is just an FYI in case you are new to veiling and you are considering veiling at church. Now, the traditional practice of veiling is to wear a veil when you are in a church. Just like men have to take their caps off when they're in a church, women put something on their head when they're in a church. That's the traditional custom. So, for instance, when I go to church for choir practice, Mass isn't going on. We're just there up in the choir loft practicing. I still wear my chapel veil because I'm in the church building. Also, there were questions like when you're in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament. Now, on Holy Thursday, when the Blessed Sacrament is removed from the church, you still wear a veil inside the church because you're in the church building. So it's not just in the presence of the Holy Eucharist, but also when you are just in the church itself. So if you are going on, if there's a procession, for instance, and you're outside of the church, you would still wear one because you're in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament. So you'd put a veil on because you're in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament. If a priest comes to your home with the Holy Communion to give Holy Communion to the faithful, you put on a veil because of the presence of the Blessed Sacrament is there. So those are the two things: when you're in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament, and when you're simply in a church. When you're in a church building that has a dedicated altar and a tabernacle. All right, so that's the basic rule of thumb for when to wear your chapel veil. As you can see, I've been putting it on and off. It's very simple. My veil hat is a little bit rough. I know some veils are a little more silky. I can just put it on and it stays on. And for the most part, unless we're outside, it's not going to blow off. But if you have trouble, if your slips and things like that, you can always put a little bobby pin right there to hold it in place. Nothing more than that is really necessary. You can also wear hats. It doesn't have to be a veil. It's simply a head covering of any kind. I know there's stories of ladies back in the olden days in school, in Catholic schools, that didn't bring their church hat. They'd have to pin a tissue to their head, and it works. I mean, that works. It gets the job done, but the point is to have your head covered with something. I know this past Easter, I got a hat on Amazon, and I wore a hat for the first time, or maybe it wasn't the first time, but it felt really special to have a hat, and that used to be more common back pre-Vatican II. It was more common in America to see women wearing hats than to see women wearing mantillas. This is a mantilla. It's more Spanish custom. You would see these as well, but it just wasn't the custom. It wasn't as popular. So this is now more popular for some reason, because the hats have just gone out of fashion, out of style in general across the board. So they're just not as common. All right. So someone else pointed out the terminology. You wouldn't say I veil or I'm veiling. You would say I wear a veil. It's a slight distinction, but it's one that gets on some people's nerves. So it's not mine in particular, but some people find it the point is to cover your head, not necessarily to be veiling. So this concept of a veil can kind of get mixed with maybe more Islamic ideas of veiling. So you want to keep them separate. This is more of a head covering, and hats are perfectly acceptable as well. It doesn't have to have the imagery of a veil to be considered Catholic tradition. All right, so that's just one side note there. I fold mine like this. As you can see, mine's a triangle, so I fold it in half and then in half again. Keeps it pretty straight. I don't need to iron it or anything like that. I just fold it like this and put it in a bag. I have had to wash it before, and you don't need to throw it in the dryer after you wash it on delicate. More than fine. I put it in the diaper bag, and I got some peanut butter crackers stuck to it, so I had to throw it in the washing machine. That's simple care and maintenance for keeping your veil. Otherwise, I just keep it either in my purse or in my coat pocket. Now that it's winter, just keep it in my coat pocket so it's always there when I need it. So yeah, that is the kind of the nuts and bolts of how to veil and when, and what you can wear on your head that constitutes veiling. All right, now my veiling story. I started veiling before I started attending the Latin Mass. I just loved the custom. I picked it up in college, and I just thought it was a beautiful tradition, and so I would wear a veil, and I know that it caught some people's attention, and a close friend of mine pulled me aside and was like, I hope you're not wearing this for the wrong reasons, and was really worried that I don't know what quite the wrong reasons would be to wear a veil, as it's just simply a sign or a gesture of respect and reverence to our Lord and to proper authority on earth. It's sort of a sign of, it's a sign of God's natural order of society, and so there's not really a wrong reason to wear a veil. So I just wanted to dispel some concerns people might have that you're wearing a veil because you think you're holier than thou, or because you think you have to, or because you think, I don't know, there's so many, it's a new old custom, so it's like coming back. So I think people are it's new to them. They're just not sure what it means, or they're not sure why you're doing it and things like that. And that's fine. I don't think people need to know all the details of why you're doing it. You don't really need to have a really deep reason to do it either. You don't have to devote a lot of prayer to it or anything. It's simply a custom, a good custom of the church, which it denotes, like I said before, the authority in the church, and that, I think it was Apostle Paul says it doesn't quite make sense to me. I don't really understand the logic to it. I just know that it is a sign of a woman having someone over her head, like her father or her husband, that there is a sort of headship, and there's an order of authority in the church, which is, that's a good enough reason to wear it right there. That is enough of a reason, of course, as St. Paul says, and that it's a custom, that it's a good custom, and I think you don't need much more than that unless you want more. I'm sure there are saints that delve more deeply into the spiritual side of veiling, of wearing a veil or wearing a head covering as a woman. And but I don't think that you need to really, I don't think you need to be very you don't need to overanalyze it, is all I'm saying. You don't need to over-rationalize it or overanalyze it. You can take it at face value. It's a custom. It is a sign of respect and authority, and it shows the subordination of God's creation, and it's a beautiful sign of dignity, woman's dignity, and that's good enough for me, and for many people who choose to wear a veil and to wear a head covering in church. All right, so let's see. I started veiling when I was just attending the Novus Ordo, the regular vernacular Mass, and it was odd because not everyone did that, right? But now that I only attend the traditional Latin Mass, it's very common for women to be wearing that. Not everyone does wear a veil. It's not required by canon law, and we are only under the authority of current canon law. It's not in there. So don't feel obliged to wear it, but it is a good custom, and it is a holy custom that has been around for a long time. So there's some merit to be had in it. So if you feel like wearing one, go ahead, and I encourage you to do it, and to join the ranks of women in the centuries before who have worn a head covering, a hat, or a scarf, or a veil to church. And other than that, I think that is all that I have to say about the veil. Let me know what your story is. When did you start veiling, or have you? What are your concerns about veiling? Are you thinking about veiling? How long have you been veiling for? And I'm already using the wrong terminology for that, and that's fine. I mean, how long have you been wearing a head covering or wearing a veil? If that is your preferred way of talking about it. And I will... Oh, okay, Madeline, just a second. All right, and I will see you in the next video. That's all I have for today.
Hi!
Say Hi! All right, we'll see you in the next video. All right, thank you. Wow, it's beautiful.
Can I do another one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah! But I